So first of all, Chodesh Tov to everybody here. It's the month of Shevat. It's a big month. We know according to Sefer Yetzirah, according to Kabbalah, this is the earliest written Kabbalistic text that we have. It's attributed to the tradition which was given from Avram Avinu. And there it explains that each month is corresponding to a different letter, to a different sphera, to a different chus, to a different sense. So the first thing with Shevat that's coming up is that it's connected to the letter tzadi. Okay, specifically the final tzadi. So what does that symbolize? The tzadi is the first letter of the word tzaddik. And according to Kabbalah and Chassidut, you have a special ability to connect to the tzaddik emet in this specific month of Shevat, to draw a deeper connection, to makayim, and to actualize advice that he's given that maybe up to this point it's been difficult for you to achieve. You have a new power, a new koach to achieve a more genuine relationship with the tzaddik, and to be able on your own as well to illuminate the point of the tzaddik within you. This is all alluded to by the letter tzadi. Now it's interesting because last month of Tevet, it's connected to the letter ayin. So if we put together the ayin and the final tzadi, it spells the word eitz, tree. We know that there is an eitz achaim, the tree of life. According to the Zohar, the tree of life is actually the tzaddik. So you see from here that what is this eitz? Because the Torah says that the human being is eitz hasadeh. It's a man of the field. And Rabbi Nachman explains that a person is not called a person if he doesn't have da'at. He doesn't have God consciousness. Who is the one who has achieved the greatest level of consciousness of God? That he is in devekut with Hashem. He is connected and attached to this the source of reality. So nobody more so than the tzaddik. So as a result of that, he is like the tree of life. So now if we go back and we plug this into the original story of creation, what was Hashem really telling Adam and Chava? So he was telling them, don't eat from the Eitz Da'at Tov Ra. Don't eat from the tree where good and its opposite become mixed and jumbled and confused. Because if you do so, then on Shabbat, you're going to be able to eat from the Eitz HaChaim, meaning that you're going to be able to have full devekut and attachment and hikashrut with the tzaddik, and through this you'll be able to live forever. Now Rabbi Nachman teaches that life is symbolic of joy, and that death is symbolic of sadness or depression. So really be'emet, on a personal, practical level, to be attached to the tzaddik means I'm going to be happy. And the opposite is also true. That if I'm not attached to the tzaddik, not within myself, meaning that point within me is not illuminated, and I'm not attached to the tzaddik of the generation, which in this case for us is Rabbi Nachman, so then as a result of that, I'm going to experience sadness. Because I don't have life. I don't have chaim. So that leads us into this next part of our story. Because what we have said so far is that the king and the emperor have met at this hotel, and they made a pact. They made a connection to each other. The connection is they both need children. The emperor goes home and has a daughter. The king goes home and has a son. They made a pact that if one of them had a daughter and one of them had a son, they would get married. Now, in today's day and age, they would say this is abusive because the kids didn't make the decision themselves. But in the days of Chassidus, even only a couple hundred years ago, they would actually make matches for their kids when they were 13. Rabbi Nachman got married when he was 13. And it was common at that point. So did Rav Natan. But in this time, it wasn't oppressive. It was okay, right? We assume that the parents actually cared about their kids and knew what was best for them. So what happens? They go home, they each have a child, but they forget the pact. So now we need to understand who is the son and who's the daughter. So we've already explained to this point that the emperor is corresponding to the higher sphere of Chokhmah, and that the king is corresponding to the sphere of Bina. Now, if you look at the 10 sphirot, you're going to notice that Chokhmah is one sphere higher than Bina. Okay? We have explained in past class. Sorry, it's a little bit early for me. We have explained in past classes that Chokhmah is the highest male sphere, and that Bina is the highest female sphere. In Kabbalah, they call Chokhmah Abba, literally father. They call Bina Ima, literally mother, because all spiritual maleness is actually derived from Chokhmah, and all spiritual femininity is derived from Bina. And like we said in last class, this is the secret to the fact that women have an extra dose of Bina. Now here we have an extremely interesting thing, which is that we know that there's a phenomenon in which it's not all the time, but very often, that boys very much connect to their mothers. That you see that they they feel a sense of closeness to their mothers, a sense of intimacy with their mothers that they don't even have with their fathers. Even though they might emulate their father and they might act like their father, but they really want to be close to their mother. And you often see the opposite as well, that daughters often cling to their fathers. Now, obviously, if the relationship's not a healthy relationship, the home is not a healthy home, anything can happen at that point, and this is not guaranteed. But this is a very common phenomenon, okay? Now, why is it that they call daughters father's girls, or they call boys mama boys, right? Mama's boys. Because actually, Kabbalistically, according to Kabbalah, the son is rooted more in the mother, and the daughter is rooted more in the father. And in Chassidut, they explain that everything wants to return to its source. The essential point which drives a person is to return to its source. So as a result of that, how does that manifest itself within kids? So the son wants to return to the mother, and the daughter wants to return to the father. This is fascinating, right? And that's the reason why there's like a special affection or affinity with those specific relationships, even though they're inverted. The reason is because Ima gives birth to Ben, which in Kabbalah refers to the 6 lower sphirot. And the daughter refers to the lowest sphere of Malchut, and that is given birth to by the father. Okay? This is also the reason when Abraham had Yitzchak, that Yitzchak, you see in the Torah, who's the archetypal son, actually has a deeper affinity towards his mother. That's the reason why he wouldn't get married until he found a woman who was like his mom, who was Rivka. When he saw that he found somebody who reminded him of his own mother, he was able to get married. She took her place. Because Kabbalistically, Yitzchak, who represents judgment or Gevur, or the left side of spirituality, he was actually primarily the offspring of Sarah, not of Abraham. This is the reason also, this is the secret of the fact that people wouldn't have been sure, it says, if Yitzchak was really Abraham's son. So why does it say that Yitzchak's the son of Abraham? Because the Chiddush, meaning you wouldn't have known that. Based on their personalities, you saw that Yitzchak was much more inward, was much more introverted, was much more modest, was much more to himself. And this you saw within Sarah. Abraham was out there, he was like, he was very extroverted. He was going out into the world. He was trying to bring people closer to Hashem. It wasn't about him. It was about everybody else, right? Those were all properties of the father. Yitzchak didn't have those properties. So if people would have saw Yitzchak, for sure they would have known that he was Sarah's kid, but they wouldn't have known that he was Abraham's kid. So why does the Torah say Yitzchak's the son of Abraham? So Rashi says, because Hashem made it that Yitzchak physically looked like Abraham, so that everybody should have no doubt that he was Abraham's son. But the reason why that's a chiddush is because if you would have seen Yitzchak in his personality, or Yitzchak in who he connected to, you might not have known that Abraham was actually the father. Okay? So the ben, the son, corresponds to the 6 lower sfirot of Chesed, Gevurah, Tiferet, Netzach, Hod, and Yesod. Malchut, the daughter, corresponds to Malchut, or Emunah, faith. Okay, so here we have these 2 differentiating entities that were given birth to, that if one of them was going to have a daughter and one of them was going to have a son, they would get married. So now let's look at this relationship. Who is the son and the daughter for us personally, right? Because obviously the point of these stories, the only reason we're able to look at them and to try to gain meaning from them is in order to achieve higher levels of Avodat Hashem, to get closer to Hashem. That we're allowed to do, even though we may not understand the depths of the secrets here. So it's great timing because Purim is coming up, even though it's Shevat. But everybody knows Purim is coming. Adar is coming. Usually in Shevat, everyone's just looking forward to Adar, because in Adar we go up in joy, we go up in Simcha. Adar is the month in which we took the Torah upon ourselves, but this time, as opposed to Matan Torah, even though we usually glorify Matan Torah, that's when we receive the Torah to begin with, but really in some ways it was an act of coercion. That Chazal explained that Hashem put the mountain over our head and told us that if we didn't receive the Torah, then the world would go into Tohu Vavohu. Now that story requires treatment of itself to understand the depths of that. But we know that for sure, according to Chazal, the Jews received the Torah again anew. But this time they did it from love. Okay? Now what's the reason that we received the Torah from love, whereas before we only received it, so to speak, through awe? So the reason is because of Mordechai and Esther. In this case, who is the son? The son is reflective of Mordechai. Who is the daughter? The daughter is reflective of Esther. Now, we know that Mordechai seemingly is Esther's uncle or relative and raises her because Esther's parents were not around. She was fatherless and motherless as a child, similar to the Baal Shem Tov. And Mordechai raised her. That's what the Torah, that's what the Megillah literally says, that Mordechai raised her. However, according to Chazal, which is not explicit, they were actually married. Okay, now, what's the unique thing that we were supposed to be taking from this? So Rabbi Nachman explains that Mordechai and Esther represent within a person and within the world hidden Torah and revealed Torah. Mordechai represents revealed Torah, and Esther represents hidden Torah. The word Mordechai corresponds to 2 words in Aramaic, mor dechai. Mor is corresponding to the Hebrew word mor, so it's synonymous, which is a spice which is called myrrh spice. The word dror, or dechai, in Hebrew actually is corresponding to the word dror. Dror means freedom. It also means free of impurities, right? So this is a spice which is free from any impurities. That's corresponding to Mordechai. He represents the leader, the tzaddik of the generation. And then you have Esther. Esther comes from the word Hester. Hester means hidden. So Rabbi Nachman explains in the 10th lesson of the Likutei Moharan that the Mordechai represents revealed Torah, and that Esther represents hidden Torah. It's actually alluded to within her own name. Now, ultimately, it is the connection and the coming together of these 2 figures, them getting married, them falling in love, which actually brings the Geula, it brings the redemption. That if not for Mordechai and Esther getting married, there would be no Geula. Now, what's the reason for that? Because the Megillah says explicitly that everything Esther did was by the command of Mordechai. Now, we spoke about in the beginning of this class how Rav Natan didn't understand the essence of this lesson his whole life. He never gave a perush, an explanation of this lesson in the Likutei Lechot. Most of the explanations that we have on these stories that we feel good about are the ones that either Rav Natan brought down in expositions in his magnum opus Likutei Halachot, or which the Breslover Hasidim over time have come out with perushim on these things based on traditions that they received. However, this is a unique story because there is no official perush to this story. There's no official explanation to this story. However, the chiddush that I had is that based on the fact that right before Rav Natan passed away, he was read this story of the king and the emperor, and he repeated over and over again, "I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go home." Now, at the end of this story, we're going to see that the boy and the girl, they end up getting married, and the girl says to the boy, "Let's go home." So, what I gather from this is that Rav Natan understood, at least at some level, the meaning of the story before he passed away, or maybe he understood the whole thing, but he revealed this one last secret before he went. And that is, there's this concept of these two tzaddikim. There is this higher archetypal tzaddik, the one in whom reveals Torah to the world, the one in whom brings and draws new life into his generation and leads his children and cares for them. And then you have this, what's called the tzaddik tachton, this lower tzaddik. In this case, this is the chassid, this is the disciple, this is the talmid, the one who, for the right reasons, is trying to draw close to Hashem, and as a result of that is receiving Torah lessons, is receiving advice from this higher tzaddik. Now Rav Natan, before he passed away, he said, "Let's go home," almost alluding to the fact that he's the daughter in this story, and that Rabbi Nachman is the husband or the son in this story. And this is bared out very nicely by Rabbi Nachman's exposition in the 10th lesson of Likutei Moharan, that these two figures are represented by Mordechai and Esther. That Mordechai represents the leader of the generation, the one who mechadishes, who brings Torah novelay to his generation that didn't exist prior. He's the one who's teaching the generation. And we see that he is the one who has no fear whatsoever of Haman, and that in reality, it's because of him that the Geula takes place, even though he's not the one who actually causes it, which is very interesting for us, because who is Esther? Esther is a person who's Jewish, but it's hidden. Esther is a person who is fatherless and motherless. So to speak, she wasn't raised with Judaism. And even though she herself is Jewish, nobody knows, including herself. But through her falling in love with Mordechai, and like the Megillah says, Mordechai raising her, so as a result of that, that spark of Judaism within her is illuminated. And Mordechai ends up telling her that she needs to tell Achashverosh, she needs to tell the king that she's Jewish. And if she doesn't, then the Jewish people are going to have to be saved by somebody else. But he alludes to the fact that the whole reason why she was chosen by Achashverosh to be the queen was only so that in the future Hashem would utilize her to bring the Geula, to bring the redemption for the Jewish people in this time of potential annihilation. That she would be the hero of the story. Okay? But you see that she doesn't want to do anything. She actually doesn't do anything without the explicit command of Mordechai. So in that sense, even though Esther saves the Jewish people, she only does so via her connection to Mordechai, their marriage, their love. And now we can start to understand deep inyanim of the story of Purim. Why is it that Achashverosh takes Esther and brings her in to be his wife, even though she's Jewish, even though she seemingly has no connection to this whole story to begin with? It seems like she's almost like abducted, right? His wife passes away, so he wants a new wife, and he sees that she is the most beautiful, and he takes her. So, according to Kabbalah, Esther represents Malchut. Now, we've spoken many times in past classes how Malchut represents hidden godliness. that it's this concept of hidden godliness that allows her to actually go down to the depths of the Sitra Achra, that is the forces of negativity in the world. Why is she sent to the darkest places? Because she's the only one who's capable of bringing out and revealing the godliness in those dark places. Now that is the secret of why her Judaism is hidden, even from herself. What is the secret of here? Because really, what are we speaking about? We're really speaking about Mordechai represents this figure who is from birth, right? Religious from the start. And you have Esther, who, so to speak, represents this Balei Tshuva, that she grows up, she has no father, no mother, meaning nobody taught her Torah. And as a result of that, she feels this inherent longing for someone to raise her. And she ends up falling in love with Mordechai. And Mordechai builds her up and helps her realize that she actually has a treasure within her. It is her spark of the tzaddik within her soul. However, while this is happening, she's abducted by Achashverosh, because Achashverosh represents the forces of negativity in the world, right? The evil king. She gets abducted just like Sarah got abducted by Avimelech. Why was she abducted? Because she represents the part or the revelation of godliness in the depths of darkness. Because she is hidden, meaning her Judaism is hidden, her Kedusha is hidden, her purity is hidden, her godliness is hidden, even from herself, she is able to be co-opted by the forces of negativity in the world. Or, as the secret of the Pasuk goes, that her feet descend to death. What does it mean her feet descend to death? So Malchut is corresponding to the feet. Esther is corresponding to the feet. Because she corresponds to the feet, she's closest to the forces of the other side, which are lurking right beneath the feet. But the concept of legs or feet is that they hang, right? They descend down. What do they descend down to? Into death. Death represents the klipot. Death, Rabbi Nachman says, corresponds to sadness. So Esther has a proclivity for sadness. Whereas Mordechai, he only is able to achieve his mission through Esther. Like Rabbi Nachman told his students, or he spoke about Rav Natan, there is no Rabbi Nachman without Rav Natan. Not one page of my writings would exist. And so too, it's Rav Natan who has to battle his entire life through the forces of negativity to be able to reveal that which his husband, right, Rabbi Nachman, the one who raised him spiritually, it was through that whole experience that Rav Natan was able to reveal the godliness within that darkness of our world. So in that sense, we correspond, so to speak, to Rav Natan. That we ourselves don't have a father or mother. We didn't grow up being taught the truth about Hashem. We didn't grow up with the depths of spirituality. We grew up barren in this area. We grew up like spiritual orphans. But the beautiful thing now is if we look back at this story, it says that while Esther was on her own with the girls, right, learning in day school, Mordechai was checking on her every single day to see how she was. So here we have a beautiful phenomenon. We know that Rabbi Nachman has a very famous Torah. It's Torah Samechei 65 of the Qutmaran, where he speaks about the master of the field. And Rabbi Nachman explains over there that there is a field, this beautiful field, with the most unbelievable trees and vegetation, flowers that are blooming and blossoming in this field. It's a supernal field, it's a divine field. Godliness is permeating this field. And there's a master of this field, the Baal Sadeh. And this Baal Sadeh, he is nourishing and raising everything in the field, making sure everything has exactly what it needs, that they have space in between the plants, the vegetation, so that they have their own space in which to grow healthfully and happily. And then Rabbi Nachman, like in this twist, it seems somewhat like a horror movie. He says that there are souls which are wandering on the outside of the field, and they can't make it into the field, and they are waiting for the master of the field to bring them their tikkun, to be able to bring them onto the field. But Rabbi Nachman ends up saying that the truth is that it's very difficult once you leave the field to get back onto the field. That's the reason why nobody else is able to get off the field and come back in peace, because the only one who's capable of going down so far, meaning to the outside of the field, to the outside of the realm of godliness, to literally leave the realm of godliness and to be able to enter back, is the Baal Sada. It's the master of the field. Part of the reason is because he's the only one who really values and cherishes those souls who are at the throes of darkness. Because he realizes that the field is not whole without all of the trees and flowers which are supposed to be blossoming there. And so this Baal Sadeh leaves the field to bring back and to bring tikkunim, to bring healing and rectification and restoration to those souls, those naked souls that are wandering on the outside of the field, pining and yearning to get back onto the field. And I once heard Rav Weinberger, he gave the most beautiful shiur a few years ago. I don't know if it was Rav Natan's Hilula, it was Rabbi Nachman's Hilula. And he was speaking about the first time that he learned this Torah, it changed his life. And he was emotional as he was telling over the effect that it had on him, feeling that he was like a naked soul wandering around, and how much everyone in our generation feels like these naked souls that were pining and yearning to be close to Hashem, but we're just wandering around. And the way that we usually think about it is that we are searching for Hashem. We are searching for the tzaddik. We are searching for the Baal Sadeh. We're searching for the master of the field, waiting for him to heal us and to bring us back onto the field. But you see from this story and from this Torah that the Baal Sadeh, he is actually looking for you, even before you're looking for him. And this is a very beautiful, very poignant point that we need to all take note of, is that while we feel like we're looking for Hashem, we're looking for the tzaddik, we're looking to be able to heal and to restore and to draw closer to Hashem in our lives, we're looking to get back onto the field of Kedusha and Tahara, of holiness and purity, of connection to something deeper than ourselves, something whole, something beautiful. We need to know that there's a master of the field who is yearning even more to get us on there, who preempted our search for him by searching for us. That Mordechai is visiting the school of Esther every day. You know, my wife, her parents were divorced when she was a kid, and it wasn't a good divorce. I mean, no divorces are good, but it was a particularly divisive divorce. It was very damaging to the family. Didn't end well, and essentially my wife's family made my wife and her sisters sign a document saying that they don't want to see their father. And so she had no relationship with her dad growing up as a kid at all. It was not like sometimes they saw her because of father's rights, because they had made this unique step of saying they didn't want to see their father at all at the behest of their family. Now it happens to be that her father's an amazing, very kind man who loves his kids very, very much and would do anything for them. And so my wife told me that as the years were going on, she didn't know this, but when they went to school, her father used to drive up to the north where they had lived and would sit in his car by the school, hoping to see his daughter as she walked into the school, as she came out of the school. He did this for years, and he wanted to respect them, so he never reached out to them because of what happened. But you see his whole life is bound up with wanting to check on his daughters to make sure they're okay, that they're happy, that they're doing well. And in this sense, it reminds me very much of like this Balasadeh, this master of the field, who, even though we don't know that since we were little, he's been checking up on us and making sure we're okay, waiting for the right time in which you would reach out to him, that you would search for him. Just like with my wife, that eventually she got to the point that she felt like something was off. She was missing something in her life. She wanted to know for herself, where's her father, who's her father, and reached out to him privately, secretly, and rekindling that relationship. Ended up being, she found out that her father was an amazing person, and they got very, very close after that, and she actually moved in with him. So it's very similar to the story of Mordechai and Esther. And so for us, right, we're always feeling like we're searching for Hashem, we're searching for Rabbeinu, we're searching for the tzaddik, we're searching to heal and to restore. But we need to know, it's very, very important that we know that even before we started doing that, that the tzaddik was searching for us, that Mordechai was checking on us every day, that Hashem is watching us from afar to see how we're doing. Now, a person might ask themselves, so then why isn't Mordechai showing himself to us? Why did Hashem put us in this place? That we should be orphans, that we should be alone, that we should feel so broken, that we should feel so shrouded in darkness and unclear about our lives and who we are and what we're doing. And the secret of Purim is that Esther is the hero of the story. That it's because her name means Hester, concealment. Because she was thrown down into the darkness. Because she is in the realm of the klipot. Because she is divorced from spirituality as a child. It is specifically B'dafka because of that once she eventually is raised by Mordechai and the spark of the tzaddik is illuminated within her, she is the one who actually reveals godliness from the deepest darkness in a way that Mordechai himself can't, because he's totally separate from it. It's Esther that reveals her Judaism, and through her revelation of the godliness within her, at the end of the story, she's able to save all the Jewish people. So too, we know that Mashiach says about King David, he was found in Stone. Stone was the worst place in civilization. It was a place which was filled with debauchery and with a complete degradation of anything that was moral or kind or good. And it said that David was found in that place. What does that mean, David was found in that place? He was within Lot, right? Lot would eventually give birth through the generations to David. Lot was Abraham's nephew. Lot went down to the place of stone, and that soul of David was found in that place, the Midrash says. Why does the Midrash bring out that he was found in stone? Because you see that the soul of David is constantly being incarnated into these types of places, very dark, godless places. And the reason is because he has a unique ability to find Hashem from that place himself eventually, and then as a result of that to lift every other spark of godliness out of that place. Whereas this revealed tzaddik on the level of Mordechai, he's not capable of going down into that place and lifting it out. Even though Mordechai himself is the cause, so to speak, of this David-like figure being able to realize the essence of their Judaism, being able to realize that they have jewels inside of them, treasures which are totally hidden, but are there, and is able to be illuminated from that place. But it is David himself, or it is Esther in this case, where they're both the personification of Malchut, the Malchut of Kedusha, that they descend down into death, they descend down into darkness, so that eventually the Bala Sadeh, the master of the field, is able to find them and to raise them. And once they are raised, then even though they end up in Achashverosh's kingdom, and she becomes the spouse to the Sitra Achra, she has to fight all forms of negativity and darkness in her life. It is because she is so connected to Mordechai at that point. She is following the command of Mordechai. She's following the eitzes of the tzaddik. She is able to overcome all of the darkness, even the epitome of darkness itself, which is reflected by Haman, and to be able to save the Jewish people. So already we have an unbelievable paradigm shift for ourselves, that so many of us, we just wish we grew up healthy. We wish we grew up with spirituality. We wish we grew up like our kids do, right? At some level, that they grew up going to Jewish schools and they were learning about Hashem and Amunah and the Torah and spirituality. And so they're not orphans, right? They're not spiritual orphans. They're not, the presence of their Father in heaven isn't hidden from them. Their true identity isn't concealed even from themselves. But we didn't have that zchut. We didn't have that merit. Why didn't we have that merit? So the answer is because we're going to bring the Geula, we're going to bring the redemption. And this is so important to know, that the reason for spiritual orphanhood is only because it's through being an orphan that you can get swallowed up by the other side, so that eventually, through your illuminating your spark of godliness within you, the forces of the Sitra Achra have to vomit you out. And when they vomit you out, they have to vomit you out with all of the sparks of godliness which are connected to you. And in this sense, we are like Esther. Hashem is hidden from us, and our treasure which we have within ourselves is also hidden from us. Our spark of godliness, our Judaism, is concealed from others, and it's even concealed within ourselves. But the secret of this is it's the concealment itself which allows us to end up being the heroes of the story. That through the tshuva, through our desire to return, and through our being raised by the tzaddik emet, through Mordechai, through getting married to him and being raised by him, following the advice of Mordechai, that we are able to overcome and to defeat Haman, this archetypal force of darkness who's trying to exterminate spirituality, Judaism, godliness from the world. And we are able to have the whole thing flip in the most wondrous way. But until it actually happens, it seems like the story is just getting darker and more confusing and scarier and more traumatic. But in reality, Hashem, through this mysterious tale of our lives, through this incredibly covert journey of our souls, it's through this specifically itself that there's going to be a huge flip. Everything's going to flip. Like Rabbi Nachman says, that the greatness of Hashem is that all the meniyot at one moment can flip to ne'imot. Just like with Esther, that you see that the story of Megillah, this tale just becomes darker and darker and darker and scarier and scarier and scarier until it reaches this peak of concealment of anything that's good, of anything that's kind, of anything that's joyful, anything that's hopeful. But it's at that very moment that Esther reveals herself to the king. She says, I am a Jew. I am a Yehudi. The spark of godliness is illuminated and revealed within her in actuality. It's manifested in the world. And as a result of that, all of the Jewish people are saved. And Mordechai and her are able to reign. The tzaddik and the chassid, the tzaddik and the talmid, the one who's religious from birth, who's connected to Hashem from the beginning, and the one who has to be hidden and thrown in the darkness, the Baal Tshuva, they are both able to reign as king and queen and to bring the Geula and bring the redemption. So now if we plug this all back into our story, we have a most wondrous understanding of what's going on. That the emperor is giving birth to this daughter, or Esther, the hidden godliness. And we have the king, which is giving birth to the son, which we'll call revealed godliness, which is Mordechai. And ultimately they made a promise that Mordechai and Esther would marry each other, that each of us would marry the tzaddik emet, that we would form this beautiful relationship with this archetypal tzaddik who would teach us Torah in a revealed way, and through this to illuminate the hidden spark of godliness within us. And with this, we're going to see that Esther is able to bring, or we are able to bring, the Geula. And for this reason, you're going to see for the rest of the story that the main character is not Mordechai. You don't even see him at some point for the majority of the story. You just see the daughter, Esther, fighting the forces of negativity, getting kidnapped and having to overcome, getting, again, taken against her will, and then having to overcome, and doing this multiple times over and over again until she is able to reconnect and reunite with her beloved, with Mordechai, with the tzaddik, just like in the story of Purim, and just like in the story of our lives. And this is what we're speaking about. In the month of Shevat, we have the ability to connect deeper and to be able to connect to the tzaddik within us at that point of Esther. That hidden godliness is illuminated within us, and we are able as well to connect to the. We do that by connecting to the tzaddik of the generation, by connecting to Mordechai, the one who is free of impurity. And as a result of that, he's able to raise us this month, even more so. And through that, we're able to have this time of joy, this time of simcha, this time of geula in the days of Adar, in the days of Purim. So now let's look back at the story. We'll plug it all in. V'nasa Kesar leveito ve'oli bat. The emperor went home to his home and gave birth to a daughter. And the king traveled back to his home, gave birth to a son. V'hayit kashrut, and they connected and they made a pact. V'nishkach behem, but they forgot the pact. V'shalach Kesar et bito lilmod. But the emperor sent his daughter to go learn from a teacher. V'gam melech shalach et beno lilmod, and obviously the father, the king, also sent his son to go to school, right? Because you have to send your kids to school to learn. However, by fate, they end up happening that they both are learning by the same teacher. They both happen to learn by the same malamed. And they fall in love very, very much. And they connect together. And they betroth each other, right? Mordechai proposes to Esther that they should get married. V'natana ben melech taba'at v'natan al yada, and the son places a ring on the finger of the daughter. V'yichad nu yachad, they become betrothed. Achar kach shalach Kesar achar bito. Afterwards, the emperor sends for his daughter. And the king sends for his son. So we need to understand some more elements to this now. One is, and this is very important, it's the emperor who we learned is Chochmah. Chochmah or Abba. Abba is the root of the daughter. And the Melech or Bina, Ima, is the root of the son. So we see from this something amazing. The Baal Shem Tov says the greater one's soul, the further down it has to go. Why is that? Because he compares it to like if you throw something off a building, right? On the top of a building, you throw it off the top of a building. The higher up the building is, the lower down the ball would go, right? Let's say you have your home. You go on top of your home, you throw off a ball. So what is it going to go down? It's going to go down, let's say 10 feet, 20 feet, whatever it is. But let's say you have a bigger building. You have a tower. And you throw a ball off the top of the tower. How far is that going to fall? thousands of feet, hundreds of thousands of feet, I don't know. Much further down. Now, if you ask the ball itself why it's so low, he's going to say, because I'm broken, because I'm bad, because I'm a loser, because I am unlovable, because I have nothing good about me. But the truth is, he falls down so low because he comes from such a high place. And this, the Baal Shem Tov was trying to mechazik and encourage us to know, more so than ever in this generation, why do we feel so low? And the answer is because the revelation of Mashiach is coming from our door. It's going to come from our generation. King David is found in stone. He has to fall down to the lowest, most disgusting, darkest of places because his soul is rooted in the highest of places. And so too we see that Esther, or hidden Torah, comes from a higher place than Mordechai or revealed Torah. But on the other hand, as a result of that, Esther ends up suffering much more because she has to go down into darkness and her own Torah has to be concealed from her. Her own revelation of or, of light, has to be hidden from her in order for her to achieve this. And so for us that we go through so much on a daily basis, we need to really, really, really take note of this. That the more that I struggle, it's because my soul is greater. If you don't know that, you'll never have the strength to get out of it. Like Rabbi Nachman says, let's say a person says, yeah, but I'm so far. I'm so broken. I'm so much further even than other people that I know, right? I see this guy steiging and he's learning and he's praying and I can barely get a word out and I don't enjoy learning and I'm in this and that, and the list goes on and on and on, and I have struggled with this with my family and I struggle with this with my health and I struggle with this, right? So you think you're Nebuch. You're inherently broken. There's nothing good about you. But this is the entire conspiracy of the world that you need to find out the truth about. That is that your soul is greater. Because your soul is greater, it endures more darkness. Now, we're learning, why do you have to go through that? Is it because Hashem, chas v'chalila, is some type of incompassionate dictator who has sent you down to the worst and the darkest of places just so you should suffer? Chas v'chalila. It's because that we are the Balei Tshuva, we are the Bechina of David, that we go down to the deepest darkness to reveal the godliness that only we can in this space. That's why we're so broken. Because there's godliness here. And for the Ge'ulah to take place, godliness needs to be revealed even in the darkness, that we show that the darkness is nothing other than light. And so therefore this darkness, which is constantly attacking us, and squeezing us and seemingly impeding our progress, but really like an olive, it's squeezing out the oil. It's bringing out our Judaism. It's forcing us to continuously have to grow and to achieve higher and higher levels of closeness to Hashem by being raised by the revealed Torah, by being raised by Mordechai, being raised by the Tzaddik. And it's ultimately through this whole process that we are able to bring the Ge'ulah. This is the reason Rabbi Nachman says that it's called Megillat Esther, and you don't see the name of Mordechai in the title at all. Why is it called Megillat Esther? So the word Megillah comes from the word Gilui, which is to reveal. Esther comes from the word Hester, which means hidden, which is concealed. So really, what is Megillat Esther? To reveal that which is hidden. It is the revelation of hiddenness. It is the illuminating of the light within the dark one. That is what brings the Ge'ulah. So we have to know that though. You're Esther. I'm Esther. If you don't know that you're Esther, you just think you're Nebuch. So you're not able to reveal the godliness in your life, and you're not able to experience the good of the situation, which is the ultimate good. Because if you were to know that in reality, you were sent to this deep, deep darkness because you're the only one who could tell Achashverosh that you're a Jew, that you could save the Jewish people, that you can save the world. So maybe you'd sign up for it. But if I don't know it, so then I'm just broken. I'm just lying down on the ground thinking, why me? Woe is me? What happened to me? Why does Hashem forget about me? Why am I the glitch in this story? Why am I the error that just seemingly is taking place in this world? Why am I so faulty and so broken? And the real answer is because hidden Torah comes from a higher place than revealed Torah. The emperor gives birth to the daughter. The emperor's Chokhmah. Chokhmah is higher than Bina. And the emperor gives birth to the lowest level, which is the daughter. But she's only low because she's so high. The king, or Bina, gives birth to the son, which is the lower level, which is giving birth to revealed Torah, the one who is from birth. And here we have the secret of the Gemara, which says that the tzaddik can't stand in the same place as the Baal Tshuva. So while we're always wondering why we're a tzaddik, the tzaddik's always wondering why he's not a Baal Tshuva. And here is the mystery of life. That the one who feels so broken and so low is really the one who's most revered and so high. Right? King David's found in stone. He's found in darkness. But his name David means beloved. Means beloved. So what happens? They end up going to the same teacher. Who is this teacher? So if you look at the Sfirot, you're going to see Chokhmah gives birth to Malchut, right? The emperor gives birth to Esther. And the king, or Bina, gives birth to Mordechai, gives birth to the revealed tzaddik, the revealed Torah. What is it that unites the hidden Torah and the revealed Torah? What is it that brings together us and Mordechai, or the tzaddik of the generation? So here's an unbelievable secret. It's the same thing that brought together the father and mother. What is the force which ends up bringing together the father and the mother? Chokhmah and Bina. Why do they come together? To have children. So what is the product of Chokhmah and Bina? In Kabbalah it's called Da'at. Da'at is the interface between pure godliness and the physical world. Right? It's above the 7 lower sfirot. It's above the 7 days of the week. It's above the 7 notes of the musical scale. It's above the 7 primary colors of the color spectrum. 7 is always the physical world. 7 is corresponding to these 7 lower sfirot of revealed and hidden Torah, which are down here. Da'at is still connected to those 7 lower sfirot because it's right above it, but it's high enough that it's still connected to pure God consciousness, to pure godliness. Now the Arizal teaches that Moshe is the living manifestation of Da'at. This is the secret of why Moshe is capable of revealing Hashem to the Jews in Mitzrayim. And the secret as well is why he's not enslaved. Why is Moshe not a slave like the Jewish people are in Mitzrayim? Because he's Da'at. Da'at is always free. Because Da'at is the knowledge of God. When a person knows Hashem, he's never enslaved. If a person knows what's going on for him is for his very best, he's not suffering. Right? When does a person suffer? When he doesn't know it's from Hashem, when he doesn't know it's good. So Moshe represents the quality of knowing Hashem. In that sense, Moshe is always free. And it's because of this that he's able to redeem the Jewish people. He's the sphere of Da'at in manifestation. And it said that Da'at is going to cover the world like water covers the sea. Meaning that Moshe is going to spread over the world like water covers the sea. Now what does Moshe represent? Moshe was drawn from water, right? Water represents God consciousness. It represents Da'at. It represents the waters of the mikveh, right? That's why the water is 40 seya. The gematria of 40 is the same gematria as Mem, which is the first letter of Moshe, right? The word Shin and He is cognate to Seya. So you have within the name Moshe, Mem, which is 40, and Se, which is like Seya, the measurements of a mikveh. Moshe is a living mikveh, right? And when the waters of that mikveh spread out throughout the world, like water covers the sea, that is Geula, that is redemption. So who is it that unites Mordechai and Esther? So Rabbi Nachman explains in the 10th Torah of Likutei Moharan that Mordechai is like the hands, and Esther is like the feet. The hands are out in the open, right? Unless it's freezing out, your hands are always bare. You can always see them, they're revealed. But normally, in general, your feet are covered, they're hidden. So Rabbi Nachman explains that the reason is because this is a reflection of what are the spiritual roots of your hands and your feet. This is represented by revealed Torah and hidden Torah. Revealed Torah is like the hands, and hidden Torah is like the feet. Because the feet are hidden, they are within a shoe, right? They're hidden. Then you have revealed Torah, which is like the hands. They're out there. They're revealed. Now, what is it that causes your hands and feet to unite? It's when you clap and dance, Rabbi Nachman says. When you clap and dance, then your hands and feet are married. Mordechai and Esther are connected. They're together. They're equal. They're one. Right? Esther represents the feet, the hidden Torah. Mordechai represents the hands, the revealed Torah. When do your hands and feet unite? When do men and women become equal? When do Mordechai and Esther able to come together and bring Geula together, bring redemption within your own personal life? When you dance, when you clap with your hands, when you dance with your feet, right? Now, what makes them do that? So Rabbi Nachman explains it's Ruach. Rabbi Nachman said when his students came to him and they told Rabbi Nachman that they were suffering so much, struggling so much in their lives ever since they met him, both interpersonally and intrapersonally. And they didn't know why this was happening. So Rabbi Nachman said, if anybody asks you, if they say, why did you go to Breslov? What did you find in Breslov? Tell them Ruach. You found Ruach. You found life force. So Rabbi Nachman explains in the 10th lesson of Likutei Moharan that Ruach comes from one's heart. That when the heart is pulsating, that pulse, when it's healthy pulse, it's like Ruach. It's beating. That beating heart is then sending life force to the hands and the feet. So Rabbi Nachman brings that this is the secret of Yaakov, his hands and his feet. It says that they lifted up, right? It says about Yosef, that Paro said to Yosef, nobody will move their hands or their feet without you. Why? Because Yosef and Yaakov represent this da'as, that this da'as of the heart is being revealed. And through that revelation of the heart, there is a pulsating that takes place in the hands and the feet, which causes them to dance. When does a Jew want to dance? Simply when he knows that everything comes from Hashem, that everything is for the best, that all of the difficulties and challenges of his life were really Hashem's hidden, mysterious way of bringing both healing for ourselves and Geula for the whole world. When a person is able to realize that, what is the natural response? I clap and I dance, right? So you see that the Ruach of the heart, once it is able to pulsate out, it's able to reach the other parts of the body. What's the natural response of that pulsating of the heart? Your hands and your feet start to move. Whereas before that, they are dormant, they're lying down. But the joy of the heart enters in, and then the hands and the feet start to move. The heart, Rabbi Nachman says in this case, represents this feature of Das, Moshe. And Rabbi Nachman says this is the secret of the story of Purim. Because we see that why did Haman decide to try to kill the Jews in Adar? Because he looked at the calendar and he wanted to see when would the Jewish people be most vulnerable. And he figured to himself, it would be a month in which nothing good ever happened to them. They have nothing to lean on. They have no benchmark for ever having experienced good in this space. And therefore they would have nothing to lean on and feel like they could have help in this time. What was the only month that nothing good happened to them? It was in the month of Adar. Not only did nothing good happen to them, but Moshe died in the month of Adar. He died on the 7th of Adar. So as a result of that, Haman decided, since Moshe is not alive, since Moshe died, this is the perfect time to attack the Jewish people. However, Rabbi Nachman brings out that Haman didn't know that Moshe was born on that day. That Moshe was born the same day that he died. And so too, people always wonder, How is it that the Breslover Hasidim can be living with the teachings of a tzaddik that died? And Rabbi Nachman is alluding to the fact that the day that I was passed away is the day I was really born. Because the Gemara says that a tzaddik never dies. Said by Yaakov Avinu, he never died. It says that tzaddikim are greater in their death than they were in their lifetime, because they're able to affect more spiritually now that they are not confined to a goof, to a body. So what's going on? Moshe passes away, and yet through Moshe passing away, he's able to be most alive, but in a hidden way. And how is that manifested? Through Mordechai and Esther. That when the revelation of Moshe is taking place in the world, it gives birth to these two archetypal figures in the world, Mordechai and Esther, to actually be the redeemers of the Jewish people. Or within you, it causes your hands to clap and your feet to dance. When you're dancing from joy, it's because the Das of Moshe has entered into you. And through the Das of Moshe entering into you, or the Das of the Tzaddik Emet has entered into you, then you see that your hands start to clap and your feet start to dance, right? So we're learning that who is the Melamed that teaches the son and the daughter? Who is the Melamed who brings together these two figures? It's actually Moshe. Moshe is the one who brings together Mordechai and Esther. And there, Mordechai and Esther, they fall in love. And they decide to marry each other. So what is the ring that was placed on the finger of Esther from Mordechai? Right? Mordechai represents revealed Torah. Esther represents hidden Torah. Ring is circular, right? A ring is a circle. In Kabbalah, circles represent the mysteries of life. Represents emunah, faith. What was put on the mysteries of Torah? What was put onto Esther's finger? Emunah. Hitchazkut of emunah. The encouragement of faith in the darkness. Because what ends up happening is that Mordechai and Esther get separated. Right? The son and the daughter end up getting separated, but before they get separated, you're going to see that the son puts a ring on the daughter's finger. What we're going to see for the rest of the story, it was the impression of that ring on her finger that allows her to get through all of the challenges of her life until she finally reunites with him. What was that circle? The circle is the concept of sameach, right? Somech, that a person is somech on something. We know that the letter samech is a circle, right? What does it mean? Samech, it says someach nifalim. Those who are fallen are lifted up. So how are those who are fallen lifted up? Because they're relying on the circle. What's the circle? It's faith. It says emunah encircles you. Why does it encircle you? Because you can't grasp it. There's no corner which you can squeeze from it. The essence of faith is that it transcends reasoning, it transcends logic. It's not because it's not logical, it's because it's higher than human intellect. So what did Mordechai give Esther before she was married to Achashverosh, before she went down into the darkness, into the klipot, before she could reveal the godliness which was hidden in the Sitra Achra? He gave her faith. Faith in herself, faith in Mordechai, faith in the Torah, faith in Hashem. And through the process of her being down in the darkness, she is always leaning on that ring. She's always leaning on that circle. She's always leaning on that point of faith, whether she knows it or she doesn't know it, whether she thinks she believes it or she doesn't believe it. Because like we've said in the past, you wouldn't still be fighting if you didn't believe. You wouldn't still be trying to get better if you didn't believe somewhere in your heart, in your soul, somewhere something. I could heal. We could have redemption. We could figure this thing out. I could become whole. If you didn't think that, you wouldn't be in the class right now. If you didn't think that, you won't be pressing on this recording on YouTube, right? You wouldn't be trying still. So what is it that's still compelling you to continue to try even though you have not seen success? It's faith. It's the ring. that your beloved gave you before you came down to this physical world, before you were separated from Mordechai. But we have to remember, Mordechai is constantly watching us, constantly checking on us, making sure that we're okay, that we have what we need, until we're able to finally reunite and to see each other again. And it's that ring that we're going to rely on, it's that circle of faith that we are going to be able to continuously draw on until we're able to reveal that faith in the world. This is why it says that Megillat Esther was written with Ruach HaKodesh. So Rabbi Nachman explains, why is it written with Ruach HaKodesh? So there's two levels of, so to speak, revelation of God. There's Nevuah and there's Ruach HaKodesh. Nevuah represents open prophetic inspiration, that I literally get to experience Hashem, so to speak, communicating with me. And then there is what's considered a lower level, which is called Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh is that I don't perceive Hashem communicating with me, but Hashem is, so to speak, like I'm an instrument. He is working through me. So that when I speak, it's really Hashem speaking through me. When I act, it's really Hashem acting through me. But it's not in an open way that I actually hear Hashem talking to me. I don't see Hashem communicating with me, but He's actually communicating through me. But interestingly, according to Kabbalah, they explain that Moshe is who's called the Av of Nevuah. He's called the father of prophecy. Why? Because he had the highest level of communication with Hashem, that he saw Him face to face, right? King David is called the father of Ruach HaKodesh, meaning that David didn't get to experience Hashem speaking to him, but he had the highest level of Ruach HaKodesh. That means that everything that he did was influenced by Hashem, to be able to do the right things constantly, to be able to overcome difficulties in his life, to be able to reveal godliness in whatever place he's in. However, it's not in an open way, it's in a concealed way through Ruach HaKodesh. Now, according to Kabbalah, they explain that the root, though, of Ruach HaKodesh is higher than Nevuah. Even though Nevuah is essentially higher than Ruach HaKodesh. Why? Because if I'm experiencing Hashem communicating with me, that's a greater revelation than if I don't and I still do what Hashem wants, because it's hidden, right? However, just like hidden Torah versus revealed Torah, but the root of hidden Torah is higher. The root of Ruach HaKodesh is higher than Nevuah. And here's a deep secret, because Nevuah is not in the world anymore, but Ruach HaKodesh is. The Torah is not revealed anymore to our generation, but hidden Torah is still here. Now, while that's the source of our pain, because it's hidden, on the other hand, it comes from a higher place. Now, if you think about it, it makes sense, right? Why? Because Moshe got to hear exactly what Hashem wanted. King David didn't. Yet David did exactly what Moshe did. He constantly did what Hashem wanted. So if you think about it, it makes sense. Why is this really rooted in a higher place? Because David is doing the same things that Moshe is doing without actually hearing from Hashem to do them. So that's harder, right? So we see again, something which is deeper and comes from a higher place is the one which is more difficult and arduous. The Baal Tshuva's soul is coming from a higher place, which is why his life is harder than the tzaddik, right? Or at least in some ways it's more difficult. Because the tzaddik can't stand in the place of the Baal Tshuva. And we have these two levels that we need, though. We need the tzaddik and the Baal Tshuva to get married. We need us, the Baal Tshuva, to get married to Rabbeinu. And when we are able to connect to this archetypal tzaddik, he's able to raise us. We're able to achieve and to follow his advice through our love for him that builds through his bringing us closer to our true selves, to Hashem. And through this, we're able to believe in ourselves, to believe in the Torah, to believe in true tzaddikim, to believe in Hashem. And then we are able, even to Achashverosh, we're able to say we are a Jew and we're not going anywhere. And as a result of that, we're able to bring the Geula. So we unite, we meet in the place of this Melamed, this teacher, who in this case is Moshe, brings us together. And then we see that Mordechai gives us this ring. This ring is faith. Rabbi Nachman gets us to believe. Through this belief, we are able to illuminate and to become who we always really were. And through that, the Geula takes place. I don't really want to go further than that because I think that what we spoke about is very important, and it's what we really need to meditate on as this month of Shevat comes in, that we have a greater ability to connect to not just the tzaddik of the generation, in this case Mordechai, the revealed Torah, but we're able to connect to the tzaddik within us, the hidden Torah. We do that by connecting to the tzaddik of the generation, okay? Now, we have a special koach to be able to do that this month. What is the tzaddik going to get us to do? It's going to get us to believe. Because it says the tzaddik lives with his faith. So really, what does it mean that the point of the tzaddik illuminates inside of me? It means my emunah is being illuminated. That ring which was given to me by Mordechai from before I came down to this world, it is guiding me, and I'm able to experience the light and illumination that comes from that faith. And once my faith is illuminated, then the Torah which is hidden inside of me starts to come out. My Judaism starts to ooze out. My point of Kedusha and Tahara, my point of holiness and purity begins to be revealed within myself and within the world. And when that happens for all of us, the Geula takes place, the redemption takes place. This is the predecessor to Adar, right? Now, even though people say, well, Moshe is dead, Moshe passed away. So Haman said the same thing. But what he didn't know was that Moshe was also born on that day. He was born on the day that he passed away. He lives through us. He lifts up Mordechai and Esther. He brings us together. So we should always know, especially right now, that Moshe is very much still alive. And don't make the mistake of Haman, of thinking that he died and torching your life as a result of that, because he's still very much alive. Like Rabbi Nachman said, I have achieved and I will achieve. My fire is going to burn until the coming of Mashiach. Rabbi Nachman says that it's closeness to the tzaddik that brings the Mashiach. Kirvat tzaddik, it says Biat HaMashiach is Kirvat tzaddik, that the bringing of Mashiach, the coming of Mashiach is dependent to Lui Hitkarvut tzaddik, to attachment to the tzaddik. So Bezrat Hashem, through the story that we're learning, the king and the emperor, through the special energy of godliness which is revealed in this month, we should be able to attach to the tzaddik within ourselves and within the tzaddik of the generation. And through this, that in the month of Adar, we will experience Geula, we will experience redemption, we're going to experience all the darkness transform and flip to light. And we're going to get to see that Esther, the reason why she's hidden is because she's so beautiful, because she's so great. Like she says, I'm black, but I'm beautiful, right? My beauty is coming from the fact that I'm enshrouded in darkness. But I'm only here because I'm able to reveal light in the darkness. I'm able to transform the darkness to light. B'ezrat Hashem, we should all be able to have this chut, to merit that this month, and that this Purim, we're going to really be able to dance and sing. We're going to be able to dance and clap. We're going to be able to unite the hands and the feet, the revealed and hidden Torah, and through this to remove all idolatry from the world. And we're going to be able to show that Moshe never really died, and he's still here. And Haman will be extinguished from the world. Amalek is going to be destroyed. Doubts, faithlessness, concealment of God will be extricated from the world. And we will be able to reach the place of the unknowable head, where we can say, Baruch Haman, our Mordechai. That blessed is Haman and cursed is Mordechai. Why should we get so drunk till we reach that point? Because once we get to the end, we get to realize that both the good and the bad of our lives is equally good. And that the bad is just as blessed as the good. They're not really separate entities coming from two separate parts of our lives, the ups and the downs, the running and the returning, the revelations and the concealments, the illumination and the choshech, the darkness, are really two sides of one coin. Esther and Mordechai are not two totally disparate, separate entities, but they're really two revelations of God. And they're both needed in order to experience Geula. How is that going to make sense? We won't be able to know until Purim. Visit Hashem, we're going to be able to experience this Purim. Anybody have any questions from today's lesson? Any questions? Any statements? Any comments? Oh, you said Adam and Chava had a tzaddik. Who is their tzaddik? Very good question. So the Arizal teaches that Moshe Rabbeinu was present in every single generation. So where was he in the times of Adam and Chava? So it says that there was a Ruach of Elokim which was hovering in the garden. Who's the Ruach? It's Moshe. What about in times of Noach? So it says that that in their generation, it says, what was the word? Shebagam. I have to look at the word again, but there's a word in Parshat Noach where the gematria is the same exact gematria as Moshe, right? To show that the spirit of Moshe was even in the times of Noach, meaning that Moshe Rabbeinu was, when he was actually born, that was many incarnations later. He was in the era of the world first. He was in the Eitz HaChaim first. It was only in the days of the generation of the Midbar that Moshe actually gets incarnated into human form. But he's actually here in every single generation, guiding the people of that generation. Okay, a very deep inyan. We're going to have to meditate a lot on this. If you don't mind to clarify Ruach Kodesh, the instrument of Hashem through speech and actions, what does that actually mean? That all my speech and actions are via Hashem? Sorry, I'm a bit tired, so I can't be super articulate. No, it's a great question. So it doesn't mean that all of them are, it means that we could. The concept of being hidden, the concept of not being the revealed tzaddik, the concept of being hidden tzaddikim, of being Bali Tshuva, is that we have the capacity to experience a higher level of Ruach HaKodesh, like King David. Now, Rabbi Nachman says that anybody who does Hitbodedut, from the bottom of his heart, he's able to achieve Ruach HaKodesh. Meaning that when you are speaking to Hashem from your heart, when words are pouring forth like water from your heart, those are really Hashem's own words coming out through you. That's why people are able to gain tremendous insight and clarity once they speak the truth to Hashem in their Hitbodedut about what they really need to do with their life. The truth is already inside of you, but it's hidden in you. So when you're able to speak the truth from your heart, you're able to have Ruach HaKodesh. You're able to know really what Hashem wants from you. But it's within yourself. So what is Ruach HaKodesh? Ruach HaKodesh is when you have divine inspiration in your thoughts, in your emotions, in your actions, but Hashem doesn't reveal himself to you. So as opposed to Moshe, where Hashem saying, this is the halacha, right? This is what I want you to do. Instead, we don't hear Hashem telling us, except through our own heart. That, so to speak, that voice inside of us, that small, still voice, that when we're able to go alone, by ourselves, without outside stimulus, without outside noise, when we're able to achieve a state of yishuv das, of tranquility of mind, and to speak words from the depths of our heart, that you're able to experience some level of truth, some level of depths of who I am and really what I want with my life. What is that? That is really Ruach HaKodesh. And what we're saying is that even though usually Ruach HaKodesh is associated with a lower level of revelation, because Nevuah is open and Ruach HaKodesh is concealed, but really what we're learning is that the Ruach HaKodesh of King David is rooted in a higher place than the Nevuah of Moshe. Because it can go down and be in a place which is so hidden and still bring you to the same thing without it being revealed, it's actually rooted in a higher place. So I hope that explains. Like a Maimar Nister, exactly. Very good, Chaya, exactly like that. Like we explained in a prior class that the level of the Ayeh, where is the place of your glory? that's connected to the word Bereshit. Bereshit is a hidden statement of creation. Now, what we learn is that the hidden statement of creation is the life force which is pumping in to all of the places which are dark in this world, all of the concealments of godliness, those places of trauma and abuse, those places of brokenness, those places of confusion. They are actually given life and chiyut by this hidden place of godliness called the hidden statement, whereas those places of revealed godliness, the Beit Knesset, the Beit Midrash, the Shul, the Kotel, the Shabbat, right, the Chagim, those places are revealed godliness. They come from the 9 open statements of creation. But the secret here is, what we're learning, is that really those places of darkness, of brokenness, they're actually, the godliness which is hidden there is rooted in a higher place than the 9 lower statements of creation, or these places of revealed godliness. Now Rabbi Nachman then goes on to say, but don't think too much about this because you'll lose your mind. Meaning, he says that essentially it's forbidden to try and think about how it could be that in places where Hashem is completely concealed, there's more, the godliness there is on a higher level. Right? Because then you might think to yourself, so maybe I should purposely put myself in those places. So Rabbi Nachman says, no, don't think about this. It's not something that can be understood in this world, in the confines of human logic at this point of creation. When Bezrat Hashem the Mashiach comes, we're going to be able to get to see why it is and how it is that the highest levels of godliness are hidden in the darkest places. But yes, it's exactly right. Malchut comes from the Keter, right? This lowest level of godliness is rooted in this highest level of godliness. That's why it's able to come all the way down to the darkest places and reveal itself. So in that case, Ruach HaKodesh is just like Nevuah, right? Divine inspiration is just like prophecy, except it's completely hidden, even to David. But what we see by the end of David's life is that he actually did everything that Hashem wanted him to, just like Moshe did. So then even though we think of Moshe as a greater figure because he actually got to experience from Hashem exactly what to do, and he did it, right? That's a higher level of, he achieved a higher level of being a tzaddik, right? But what we're learning is that a Baal Tshuva, even though he doesn't get to experience that open revelation of God, but he can actually experience something different, which is rooted in a higher place, which is called Ruach HaKodesh. That his belief in Hashem and his genuinity and his honesty in trying to connect to him can actually pour forth within his own heart and soul the yearnings of Hashem for him in a way which is concealed. But the reason it's concealed is because it comes from a higher place. And ultimately we see from the fact that it's Esther who brings the Geula, right? It's called Megillat Esther. We see that it's really this hidden Torah getting revealed that is the cause of the redemption. It's attributed primarily to Esther, even though Esther's capacity to do this is through Mordechai, through revealed Torah. Okay? We need to bring together these 2 facets. Any other questions before we sign off? Chodesh Tov. Okay. Everybody have an amazing Rosh Chodesh, Shevat. Everyone should know as well that after Rabbi Nachman passed away, the very first kibbutz, the very first gathering of Breslov Hasidim after Rabbi Nachman passed away was initiated by Rav Natan on Rosh Chodesh Shevat. And it ended up being that it was a time of tremendous hitchazkut, that really it looked like the future of Breslov Hasidus was over until Rav Natan, out of his Ruach HaKodesh, right? He didn't hear from his Rebbe what Hashem wanted, but of his own volition, he made a decision to gather all of the Breslover Hasidim from his own divine inspiration. And as a result of the hitchazkut, the encouragement, the empowerment that took place in their gathering, they realized that Breslov Hasidus cannot end. It needs to increase even more. It needs to be revealed even more. It needs to go spread out even further. And that was really the the precedent for the kibbutz that would eventually become the kibbutz of Rosh Hashanah. That all of the Hasidim coming together on Rabbi Nachman's Rosh Hashanah was really in some ways brought into existence through the kibbutz that takes place on Shevat, on Rosh Chodesh Shevat, which is right now. So there's a mitzvah, a lot of people don't know this, there's a mitzvah to have a Seudah on Rosh Chodesh. So, B'ezrat Hashem, we should all be able to have a Seudah, have a bread, wash, and try to learn about Rav Natan, try to learn about the hidden tzaddik, try to learn about the Baal Tshuva, read through Fire and Water, read the teachings of Likutei Halachot, read something inspirational from Rav Natan, get together with the Breslover Hasidim in your area and have a kibbutz. Or if you don't have any, then get together with the Breslover Chassid within yourself. and mechazik yourself, encourage yourself, and through this is what ultimately brings this highest revelation. And then B'ezrat Hashem, we're going to be able to dance and sing on Adar. It says that Bracha, you said you had a question. I have a question in the chat. I don't know why I don't see it. Oh, sorry, I didn't see this. In the past, when a person was in the dark, before he knew this lesson, before he began yearning for Hashem, how were the sparks raised? So essentially what's happening before we knew this lesson, before we knew that Mordechai was visiting us in our cheder every day, watching us and making sure that we're okay, we're actually busy accumulating klipot for the sake of it, destroying them in the world. Okay? So it's like, so to speak, we are the spark of godliness, which is descending into the throat of the Sitra Achra. That's happening by us not knowing Hashem at this point in our life. And then ultimately, when we are able to see Mordechai, that he's been watching us this whole time, that he's been yearning, trying to find a way to reconnect with us. And then ultimately when we do, and that spark of godliness is revealed in us, we are able to not just destroy the Sitra Achra for ourselves and to elevate beyond this concealment for ourselves, but we are able to, all of those sparks of godliness which have become connected to us as we have descended into the darkness, all of those sparks are raised with us, just like they were with Esther. Does that make sense, Bracha? Okay, great. Everybody have a great day, a great week. Please, please, please speak to each other today in the chats on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, the time of the kibbutz, of the Hasidim, of Rabbi Nachman, of the inspiration of Rabbi Nachman's Chassid, out of his own volition, that they decided to gather and to connect and to talk and to encourage each other. So just take today to encourage your friends in your group. Say, this is what I've gotten from Rabbi Nachman. This is what he means to me. Encourage each other today. This is the secret of the day. Everybody have a great week.